Hey there besties! Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're continuing our recap of the manhwa, The Cellist. If you're new to this series, check the description below for links to previous episodes. Lastly, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It really helps our channel grow. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Sehun sat on the couch, eyes fixed on his phone screen. Hayeon, noticing his deep concentration, leaned in curiously. Sehun, are you watching Haju's video again? She asked with a smile. Sehun nodded, his gaze still on the screen. Yeah. She chuckled. Is it that fascinating? Yeah, he replied, warmth and admiration in his voice. Hayeon placed a gentle hand on her belly. How can we hear a heartbeat from something so small? I still can't believe it's in here. Sehun reached out, resting his ear against her belly. If we're lucky, we might be able to find out the sex next month. I wonder if it'll be a daughter, just like you wanted. Sehun smiled confidently. It is. She raised an eyebrow. You and your unfounded confidence. It's not unfounded, he said, lifting his head from her lap. Okay, she replied, looking unsure. Sehun leaned in slightly. Apparently, if it's a girl, the heartbeat sounds more like a train, and if it's a boy, it sounds like a horse's hooves. Listen. He gestured toward her belly. The swoosh sound Haju makes sounds like a train. Hayeon smiled. Where did you hear that? I looked it up. There's a lot of information that's not in books. She rolled her eyes. Don't be too quick to believe that stuff. It's not accurate. You even dreamed about berries, he teased as she hugged him. Why are you leaving out the white tiger that was there too? She replied warmly. Sehun shook his head with a smile. Anyway, it's a girl. It has to be. He sat up straight. I worked really hard for it. She scoffed. And what exactly did you do? Sehun grinned, recalling his efforts. He had read everything he could about pregnancy, worked hard at the gym, and changed his diet. That day, Sehun walked through the door, drenched in sweat. I'm home. Hayeon eyed him warily. How long did you work out? Until I was exhausted, he replied, hugging her. Why did you do that? They said I should. Who did? Sehun stepped closer. Stop asking questions and kiss me, he said, pressing a kiss on her lips. In the days leading up to the pregnancy, he had changed his diet, relying more on vegetables. Hayeon frowned at their dinner plates. You're only having vegetables again? How come there's only meat on my plate? Sehun chewed his leafy greens. They said it's good for making a baby. Specifically, a girl. She shook her head in disbelief. Don't forget to take your magnesium, he reminded her, placing a bottle on the table. At one point, Sehun even believed electromagnetic waves influenced the baby's gender. He had studied tirelessly. One day, Hyungsik had brought a cake for Hayeon. Miss Kim. Look at this. It's a stone harabang cake. Doesn't it look delicious? I brought it just for you. In frustration, Sehun had knocked the cake to the floor. I made every possible effort I could, so it has to be a girl, he declared confidently. Hayeon sighed. Well, let's just see if all your hard work has paid off next month. 1 month later, the doctor smiled as she observed the ultrasound. Everything looks healthy. Sehun and Hayeon held their breath. So, can we tell the sex? Hayeon asked eagerly. It's still difficult to determine at this stage, but by the looks of it. The doctor began. As they left the hospital, Hayeon remained calm. It's not certain yet, she said as Sehun stayed close, acting protective. You think I'm doing this just because you're supposed to have a girl? He asked, wearing a serious expression. Just then, a scooter dashed past Hayeon, almost knocking her over. Oh my God. That almost scared the baby out of me, she gasped. Sehun reacted instantly, grabbing the rider's collar, stopping him in his tracks. Do you have a death wish? Sehun growled. The rider stammered, no. Are you going to be responsible if my wife loses her baby? The rider panicked. Sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. Sehun, I'm fine. Stop. Hayeon pleaded tensely. Don't ever ride an e-scooter on the sidewalk again, Sehun scolded before letting him go. Yes, sir. the rider replied quickly, speeding off. Sehun sighed. This isn't working. Let's go to a coffee shop next time. But I really wanted a smoothie, Hayeon said before Sehun scooped her into his arms. What are you doing? You're embarrassing me. Let me down. Sehun held her firmly. Let's just make it to the car like this. If you hold still, I'll do anything you want, she bargained, her face flushed with embarrassment. Sehun narrowed his eyes. Really? Anything? Hayeon nodded. Yeah. When they reached home, they sat in the living room. Is there anything else you want to eat? Sehun asked. Nope. I'm full. So, what do you want me to do? She asked. She smiled mischievously. Hold me, she said, opening her arms. Sehun complied. Now what? Give me a kiss. Sehun chuckled and leaned in, pressing a soft kiss on her lips. Now, a French kiss. He complied, deepening the kiss as they lay back on the chair. Hayeon tugged at his shirt. He hesitated. We can't. What if Harju gets hurt while we're doing this? Hayeon pouted. So you're not going to? Can you hold out for 10 months? Sehun swallowed. I can. She looked down. I don't think I can. Let's do some prenatal training. I'll play music for you, he said, rising to get his cello. Soon, they were seated, Sehun playing while Hayeon listened warmly. Just then, she felt a sharp pain in her belly. This feeling. She thought, rubbing her stomach. Suddenly, she shifted. I'm going to the bathroom. Sehun blinked. Okay. Hayeon hurried away, a strange sensation washing over her. In the bathroom, she glanced at the tissue and froze. Blood. Kim Hayeon stood frozen, staring at the small streak of red on the tissue in her hand. Blood? She whispered, her heart pounding. She glanced at the tissue again. 27 weeks. This wasn't the early stages of pregnancy anymore. This shouldn't be happening. A wave of anxiety rushed through her. Why am I bleeding? The doctor said everything looked fine this morning. Did I do something wrong? Have I pushed myself too hard? Maybe I sat down too hard, or was that drink too cold? She shook her head, trying to stay calm. No, I shouldn't overthink it. I'll just go to the hospital. We checked on Harju this morning, and everything was fine. I'm sure it's nothing. Still, her hands trembled as she reached for the door. Then she hesitated. Sehun is going to make a big deal out of this if he finds out. Maybe it's better if I go alone first. In the living room, Sehun sat with his cello, fingers gently pressing against the strings. His deep voice carried through the air. What do you want me to play this time? Hayeon forced a casual tone. Sehun, I'm heading down to the store for a minute. What do you need? Ask Hyungsik to go, he said, glancing at her. No, it's fine. I want to take a walk. Sehun stood up. I'll go with you then. Panic surged through her. No, don't. I just want to go alone. His gaze darkened, sensing something was off. Did I say something wrong? Hayeon sighed, gripping the hem of her shirt. No, Sehun. It's not that. She took a deep breath. Just listen, and don't freak out, okay? I noticed a little bleeding, so I'm going to stop by the hospital. Before she could finish, Sehun's eyes widened. In an instant, he let go of his cello, the expensive instrument crashing to the floor. Sehun. Your cello. You can't just drop it like that. How is that what matters right now? He snapped, rushing to her. He grabbed her shoulders, then softened his voice. I'm sorry for yelling. Are you in pain? No, nothing hurts. We're going to the hospital. Now. At the hospital, the nurse at the front desk barely looked up as Hayeon approached. Kim Hayeon? Weren't you here this morning? Hayeon nodded. Yes, but I noticed some bleeding when I got home. The nurse finally lifted her eyes. Was there a lot of blood? No, just a small stain on the toilet paper. Okay. Please have a seat and wait. Sehun stiffened. A pregnant woman just said she was bleeding, and you're telling her to wait. Hayeon quickly grabbed his arm. It's probably not urgent. Please, don't make a scene. He gritted his teeth but sat down beside her. She checked her phone, searching for symptoms. Sehun, look, other people had this happen too, and it was fine. I'm sure it'll be the same for us. She exhaled sharply. Yeah. Everything is going to be fine. It's probably nothing. Sehun took her hand, catching her off guard. He said nothing, just held it gently. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, his patience wore thin. He tapped his fingers against his knee, glancing at the reception desk. It's been an hour already. How much longer? Hayeon reached for him again, but before she could say anything, Sehun stood up. Sehun, what are you doing? I can't wait any longer. I need to say something. Before he could move, the nurse called out, Kim Hayeon. Yes. She quickly turned. The doctor will see you now. Inside the office, the doctor smiled reassuringly. Did you experience any pain? No, Hayeon answered. The doctor nodded. The bleeding has already stopped. If it's just spotting and not enough to soak a pad, you don't need to worry. Just get plenty of rest. Hayeon sighed in relief. Okay. But Sehun wasn't satisfied. That's it. Our baby was bleeding. The doctor remained patient. It wasn't the baby. The placenta is positioned toward the bottom. No. Our baby. His voice was sharp, protective. He pulled Hayeon closer. Sehun. Hayeon glared at him, embarrassed. The doctor offered a small smile. Your wife just needs rest. She'll be fine. Hayeon quickly bowed. Thank you. We'll see you at the next appointment. She tugged Sehun into a bow before hurrying out of the office. On the drive home, Hayeon turned to him. See? I told you it wasn't a big deal. If it had been serious, I would have turned that place upside down. She smiled playfully. Don't worry. I'll keep our little Haju safe and sound. You take care of yourself first. I was scared you were hurt. Her heart softened. Sehun, aren't you worried about the baby? I am. But you come first. We can have another baby, but there's only one of you. She frowned. Okay, but what if I died giving birth? That won't happen. I said what if. What would you do? His voice was calm but firm. I'd kill whoever made that happen, then die too. Hayeon gasped, lightly smacking his arm. Oh, come on. Seriously. You think I'm joking? His voice was serious. If that ever happened. You have to take care of Haju, okay? He didn't reply, eyes fixed on the road. I don't even want to imagine it, so stop talking like that, he muttered. Hayeon let out a small laugh, but inside, her heart ached at his words. She squeezed his hand, grateful for him. Hayeon stirred in bed, restless after days of lying down. Turning to Sehun, she murmured, Sehun, I want to get up. He shook his head immediately. No. They said you need to stay in bed. But I feel better now, she insisted. Let me just go say hi to Hyungsik. I've been lying down for days, I want to move around a bit. Sehun's expression darkened with concern. You can't get hurt again. She sighed, understanding his protectiveness. I'll just give him my cello and send him off. You stay right here. Sehun left the room and found Hyungsik in the living room. It's over there, Sehun said, pointing to the cello. Take it and go. Hyungsik frowned as he examined it. Why is it all banged up? You didn't get into a fight with Hayeon, did you? Not at all, Hayeon answered as she entered the room. He was just startled because of me. Hyungsik turned to her, his tone softening. Hayeon, I told you to stay in bed, Sehun said, exasperated. Hyungsik's eyes widened. Just how startled was he for the cello to end up like this? Hayeon gave a small smile. He dropped it when I told him I had some bleeding. What? Are you okay? Hyungsik asked, concern evident. I'm fine now, she reassured him. We checked on the baby, and everything's great. Hyungsik sighed in relief. I get why Sehun was so shocked. But shouldn't you be resting? Sehun placed a hand on her shoulder. Exactly. So get out already. Hayeon rolled her eyes. Come on, I'm fine. Why don't you stay for some tea? We have a lot to catch up on. Hayeon hesitated. Should I? I said leave, Sehun muttered. Ignoring him, Hayeon smiled. What would you like? An iced coffee? Hayeon grinned. Sounds great. You're going to make it? Sehun asked. Well, I can't have the guest do it, can I? She replied, turning to him. Sehun shot Hayeon a look but headed to the kitchen. Roibos for me, hun. Hayeon called after him. An extra shot and lots of ice for me. Hayeon added. Sehun returned shortly with their drinks. Hayeon took a sip and smirked. Thanks to you, I get to have coffee made by Sehun. You didn't spit in it, did you? Sehun smirked. I added bleach. Hayeon gagged dramatically. Bleg. As they chatted, Hayeon turned to Hayeon. Did you find out the baby's gender yet? Hayeon nodded. They think it's a girl, but they're not 100% sure yet. Yeah, I've heard that can change later on, Hayeon said. Sehun, however, was firm. It's a girl. No, you never know. There's still a chance, Hayeon countered. Sehun shook his head. If it was a boy, he would have made his presence known by now. He's got my genes. Hayeon groaned. I don't need to know about that side of you. Hayeon changed the subject. How long do you think it'll take to fix the cello? Sehun still needs to practice. Hayeon sighed. It has to be sent to Germany, so probably a few months. Hayeon's eyes widened. That long? Hayeon nodded. Most likely. It'll probably be back by the end of your last trimester. He was right. The cello arrived just a week before the due date. Our Haju sure is making a grand entrance, Hayeon chuckled. Sehun stood beside her. We should start packing for the hospital, he said. Hayeon and my assistant will be here tomorrow to help. You don't have to worry about a thing. Really? Are you sure we can ask them to do all that? She asked. That's what they're paid for, he reassured her. She sighed. Then what do I do? Maybe I should trim my toenails. She sat down but couldn't quite reach. Sehun picked up the nail clippers. Here, he said, kneeling to help. Hayeon grinned as she watched him. Oh, she suddenly yelped. He looked up, alarmed. Did that hurt? She giggled. No, I'm just messing with you. Don't do that, he scolded. She softened. Sehun. Yes. I'm really happy. He smiled. Me too. Later that night, Hayeon stirred again. Sehun felt her shift and whispered, Where are you going? Oh, did I wake you? She asked. I'm craving noodles. I thought I'd make some before sleeping. I'll do it. Hayeon blinked. You. In the kitchen, she watched Sehun cook, cheeks warming. Sehun, did you know you've changed a lot since I got pregnant? In a good way, she mused. He glanced back. Me. She nodded. Yeah. You talk with me more, and you've gotten more gentle and expressive. He considered that. Have I? She smiled. For sure. All I do is follow you around, and it just happens, he said. Maybe it's you that changed me. In a good way. She laughed as he placed the bowl in front of her. Darling, she teased. He smirked. Don't mind if I do. She took a bite and gasped dramatically. How could someone so perfect exist? Sehun raised an eyebrow. How is it? She grinned. I found your flaw. His lips curled into a smirk. It's my first time making it. Really? That explains it, she laughed. The next day, Hayeon arrived with Ms. Lee. We packed everything and put it in the car, she said. You're all set. Hayeon sighed with gratitude. I appreciate it, truly. Ms. Lee chuckled. How do you feel? You'll both be parents in a week. You're not going to cry, are you? Hayeon teased Sehun. Sehun scoffed. I've never cried in my life. Not once. Hayeon challenged. Maybe when I was born. Ms. Lee smirked. I doubt even then. She turned to Hayeon. What do you say to a bet on whether he cries or not? I bet $100 he won't, she declared. I'll bet on that too. Hayeon chimed in. Then it's not a bet. Change yours. No way, Hyung-sik protested. Hayeon suddenly spoke up. I'll put my money on Sehun crying. Her smile was confident. As the conversation about the bet continued, Sehun glanced at Hayeon. What's the point of a bet like that? He asked. Hayeon smiled. Why, what's wrong? Judging from how you've been acting lately, I'm sure you'll shed a tear or two. She playfully added, or you could just do it for me and bawl your eyes out. You can make me an easy $200. Hayeon struggled to reach something on her dress. Oh, I can't reach. Sehun smirked before wrapping her in his arms. I'll just give you that $200. No. I'll give you 20,000, he added. No thanks. Geez, it isn't about the money, Hayeon huffed. You're better off just accepting the money, he smirked. Suddenly, she froze, a small gasp escaping her lips. Sehun immediately noticed. You want it now? No, she said slowly, pressing a hand to her belly. I'm feeling something. Concern flashed across Sehun's face. Are you still in pain? He asked, checking his phone for her contractions schedule. No. I'm okay, she said as he helped her sit. The time between contractions is long, and the pain isn't too strong yet. Let's get you some food before the next one. What do you feel like? He asked. Hayeon thought for a moment. What would be the ideal last meal? For strength, I'll want meat. Maybe one last spicy dish before breastfeeding, or cold ice cream. Minutes later, Hayeon stared in disbelief at the feast laid out before her. You ordered all of them. I couldn't possibly finish all this. Sehun shrugged. At least take a bite of everything so you won't miss it. She huffed before taking a bite of the meat. Her eyes widened in pleasure. Sehun panicked. What is it? Are you in pain? She shook her head furiously, her cheeks flushed. No, it's just so good. Sehun sighed. Stop playing around and eat. Suddenly, she winced, gripping the table. Oh. This time it's for real. The spacing is getting shorter. Let's finish eating, then wash up and get going, he told her. Soon, Sehun helped her bathe. I can wash myself, she argued. Sehun shook his head. I can't let you risk slipping. As he helped scrub her hand, she chuckled. This feels kind of weird. I remember the last time it was me giving you a bath because you'd hurt your hand. Sehun smirked. Oh. On our trip. Hayeon, you were really sexy. She narrowed her eyes. What, am I not sexy now? He sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. You're still sexy, but you're beautiful, too. That's why I'm going insane holding back. I'll explode if you even touch me. Hayeon suddenly reached out and poked his side. What are you doing? She giggled. Hee. I wanted to see if you'd really explode. Oh. Sehun immediately steadied her. Let's finish up and get to the hospital, he said, quickly rushing the bath. At the hospital, Hayeon lay on the bed. Does it hurt a lot? Sehun asked, seated beside her. Sort of, she groaned. She's not joking around anymore. She must really be in pain, Sehun thought. Just then, the doctor entered the room. We'll be doing the internal examination now, she informed them. After a careful check, the doctor announced, she is 3 centimeters dilated. Hayeon groaned. Ugh. It's a bit slow. You'll have to wait a bit longer, the doctor told them. Sehun squeezed her hand. If it hurts too much, don't wait it out. Let's just get surgery. She shook her head. No. I can handle it. 3 hours later, she was gripping the bed rails, her face twisted in pain. I can't do this. Get me painkillers, right, now, she demanded, dragging his shirt as he tried calling for the doctor. Sehun's voice was tight with worry. I called the doctor. Breathe, take deep breaths. After a short sleep, Hayeon opened her eyes to see Sehun quietly watching her, his shirt rumpled. Sehun, why are you sitting there? You should get some sleep. Sehun frowned. How long was I asleep? She asked. An hour or so, he replied. What's with the face? Are you not feeling well? She asked, watching his expression. Sehun bowed his head. No. I'm angry that I can't do anything for you when you're in pain. She took his hand. What do you mean by that? You give me so much love. That's the one thing that keeps me going. So you can't ever change, okay, Sehun, she said with a smile. He whispered, never, as he kissed her hand. A knock on the door interrupted the moment. I'm here for the internal examination. Hayeon looked at Sehun. Ah, you almost cried, it was so close. Sehun sighed. I told you, I don't cry. The doctor examined her again. Ah, you've dilated quite a lot now. We'll prepare you for labor. Push. Harder. Hayeon clenched her teeth and groaned in agony. Ugh. The nurse warned, don't clench your teeth, they'll crack. Sehun reached out, his voice urgent. Bite me instead. She shook her head in pain. The doctor encouraged her. You're almost there. Once more. She screamed and pushed with all her might. Almost there. And, you've done it. Well done. The doctor smiled. Will the father come and cut the umbilical cord? The nurse glanced at Sehun, who leaned in, kissing Hayeon's head. Sir, she called, looking dumbfounded. Hayeon, exhausted, chuckled. Just go ahead and cut it. He's preoccupied. The nurse carefully held up the baby. The baby has all 10 fingers and toes. You have a beautiful baby girl. Sehun finally spoke, his voice soft. Okay. The doctor nodded. Congratulations, placing the wrapped baby beside Hayeon. Hayeon reached out weakly. Haju. Hi, there. Sehun gently brushed Haju's tiny hand with his finger, all shining in his eyes. Hayeon, we made a whole person, she said with a weak smile. Hayeon looked up at him, exhausted but smiling. You really did great. She is just so perfect. Suddenly, her eyes fluttered closed, and Sehun's heart dropped. Hayeon! He screamed. Hayeon slowly stirred awake, her vision still blurry. A strange sensation spread across her body as she felt dampness on her cheeks. She blinked in confusion. What's this? It's wet. She murmured, rubbing the moisture from her face. What happened? Did I pass out? Her voice was hoarse, and when she turned to her side, she was startled to see Sehun sitting close, his face tense with concern. His eyes were red-rimmed, and the moment she looked at him, he quickly wiped his tears away before pulling her into a hug. Why are you crying? Hayeon asked softly. Did you think I was dying or something? She teased. Sehun exhaled sharply, holding her tightly. You kept telling me to take good care of Haju without you. What else was I supposed to think? A small smile tugged at Hayeon's lips despite her exhaustion. I thought you didn't even want to think about it. Her voice wavered slightly. Thank you, Sehun. For what? He asked, looking unsure. She grinned. I just earned $200. Sehun groaned. Seriously? A while later, Hayeon was served a variety of food. Her eyes lit up at the sight of it. Time to eat, she announced gleefully, wasting no time digging in. Yum. The food here is delicious. I was so hungry. I feel so much better now. Sehun watched her fondly. Hayeon, eat slowly. You've been through a lot. You should eat too, she pointed out. You've been skipping meals this whole time. He shook his head. I'll eat when you're finished. Hayeon pouted. Okay, I'll hurry up then. Take your time, he said, though his gaze remained fixed on her as she ate. When she was done, she turned to him with a smirk. Stop watching me eat and hold Haju for a bit. Sehun tensed. Me. Hayeon chuckled. You're her dad. Who else would hold her? Say hi to Haju. Hesitantly, Sehun reached out and carefully cradled their tiny daughter in his arms. His expression softened as he looked down at her. Hi. I'm your dad. His voice was barely above a whisper, his fingers brushing against her soft cheek. Me, a dad. He swallowed, overwhelmed by the thought. Just then, Haju threw up on him. Both of them flinched. Later, their parents visited. She fainted. They all echoed after hearing Hayeon's childbirth story. She took a deep breath and exhaled shakily. Just for a moment. I must have lost a lot of blood and was low on oxygen. Are you okay now? They asked, concerned. Yes, I'm fine. She smiled softly. It's not easy giving birth to a child, Ms. Park said. Hayeon, you really did something amazing. Sehun raised an eyebrow. How would you know? Have you ever given birth? His mother chuckled. Ah, that's right. We found you under a bridge, she teased. Hayeon laughed. Ms. Park shook her head. Hayeon, this is why child-rearing is so important. Don't raise her like I raised Sehun. Oh, it's time for visitation. If you go now, you can see Haju, Hayeon told them. As they all stood by Haju's crib, they marveled at their tiny daughter. Sehun's mother peered in, whispering in awe, oh my. Hayeon gave birth to herself. Still, there should be at least one thing she got from Sehun, right? They all glanced at Sehun, who looked slightly flustered. After returning home, one morning, Sehun sat across from Haju as she watched him with an intense gaze. They stared at each other in silence. What are you doing? Are you literally just watching her because I asked you to keep an eye on her? Hayeon asked as she entered the living room. Sehun looked sheepish. No. Haju doesn't like me. Hayeon rolled her eyes. Why wouldn't she like you? Look, he said, lifting her carefully. He held her against his chest, but her tiny cheeks scrunched up in discomfort. Moments later, her eyes teared up before she burst into cries. She's just not used to you yet, that's all. Just hold her more often, Hayeon reassured him. She reached for Haju and cradled her gently. Come to mommy, sweetie, she cooed, patting her back as she settled her against her shoulder. Sehun sighed, watching them, until Haju suddenly stuck her tiny tongue out at him. He gasped. She just stuck her tongue out at me. Hayeon giggled. She does that to me too. Sehun groaned. She's already picking sides. Later that night, as Haju slept, Sehun massaged Hayeon's shoulders. I can't believe it's this exhausting even with a sitter helping us, she sighed, relaxing under his touch. Sehun, you really should appreciate your mother more. Nope, he replied. She lifted her head. What do you mean, nope? Also, she added, stop acting so obsessive over me in front of her. She's not going to like me if you keep doing that. Sehun's gaze softened. She'll still like you. Hayeon sighed, stretching. Where do you want me to do next? He hesitated. Oh, can you massage my breasts? They keep getting all stiff. Sehun's face turned crimson. Hey. Why are you blushing? Do it with a parent's attitude. She playfully smacked his head. He awkwardly reached out, but before he could do anything, Hayeon smirked. The doctor said we can start again after 6 weeks. Sehun stilled. Start what? She grinned knowingly. His cheeks flushed as he held her hand. When can we do it again? It's been 2 months. Hayeon's lips twitched. Sehun, you really are young, huh? You still think about that after everything? How could I not? His eyes softened as he gazed at her. You get more beautiful every day. A mischievous glint flashed in her eyes. Okay. Haju is going to be sleeping on her own in a month. Let's do it in exactly a month. What do you say? Sehun swallowed hard. A month. Okay. The next morning, as Hayeon carried Haju, she glanced at the calendar, and saw that Sehun had marked the date. She burst into laughter. How adorable, Sehun. The day had finally arrived. Sehun jumped out of bed, excitement rushing through him. Today was the day. He grabbed his phone to turn off the alarm, his heart racing. He had been counting down to this moment, but as he looked beside his bed and found it empty, his excitement wavered. Where was she? Hayeon? He called as he stepped into the sitting room after getting dressed. Oh, you're up, she mumbled, cradling Haju, who was fast asleep on her shoulder. Sehun frowned. Why do you look so exhausted? What time did you wake up? He asked, moving toward her seat. Around 4. She muttered, stifling a yawn. Haju kept waking up, so I was holding her. Sehun sighed. You should have woken me up. What for? I can put her back to sleep, Hayeon said. You can't be tired today, he pressed. Why not? She looked at him, confused. Because. He gently lifted Haju from her arms. I'll take care of her. You go get some rest. Her expression softened. Oh, would you? Then I'll just sleep for 2 hours. She stood, stretching before heading to the bedroom. Just sleep until you're rested, he insisted. Just as she climbed into bed, mumbling about how tired she was, a loud cry echoed from the sitting room. Hayeon groaned, covering her head with a pillow. She'll stop soon, right? Sehun called out. Yeah, she'll calm down soon, Hayeon replied, though she wasn't entirely convinced. Haju's cries only grew louder. Sehun tried everything, rocking her, patting her back, even making silly faces, but nothing worked. It's not the diaper, and you're not hungry. What is it? He sighed. Haju, do you not want a sibling? Hayeon stirred at his words and peeked at him struggling with their daughter. You're not going to help me out? I'll take her. Sehun turned to her quickly. No. You need to sleep. I can't sleep with her crying, Hayeon said, already reaching out for Haju. It's fine. Here. He carefully handed her over. She rocked Haju gently. All right, just hang on until the sitter gets here. Oh, didn't I tell you? The sitter is off today. Why, of all days? Sehun groaned. She said it was urgent. Well, let's call someone else, then. Where would we find a sitter last minute? And even if we did, we can't just leave Haju with someone new. Okay, then I'll call Hyungsik or Ms. Lee, he said, pulling out his phone. No. Haju isn't even used to you holding her, but you think she'd be calm with them. She snatched his phone before he could dial. Just then, Haju let out a tiny wail. Hayeon sighed. Oh, it's time for our little one to eat. She cradled Haju, feeding her while Sehun watched, jealousy flickering in his eyes. Haju, time to eat. Haju, who do you take after to be this fussy? Hayeon glanced at him. I'll be right back. Okay, she replied, puzzled as he rushed out. Moments later, Sehun returned, carrying a bag filled with plush toys. Hayeon blinked at him. Where did you go? To get these. He pulled out stuffed animals. Look, Haju. Daddy brought you some friends. Which one do you like best? Haju's tiny fingers grasped a bunny plush. Hayeon chuckled. Oh, she picked the bunny. Sehun grinned. Have you eaten anything? Not yet. Go eat. I'll watch her. Take your time. Thanks. I'll be quick then, she said, hurrying off. Take your time, he repeated firmly. Minutes later, she returned. All done. Sehun frowned. Already? I told you to take your time. You haven't eaten either. Go eat, Sehun. Instead of replying, he wiped the corner of her mouth, plucking a tiny crumb and popping it into his own. She blushed. Hey, come on. Just go. He smiled. Okay. As Sehun ate, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Had Hayeon forgotten what day it was? Just then, she peeked into the dining room. Sehun, I got Haju to sleep. I'm going to shower. I'll join you, he replied, tugging at his shirt. No way. Finish your food first. You'll need the energy. His heart pounded. All right. I'll be there after. Wait for me in the bedroom. After her shower, Hayeon stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the delicate lace lingerie she hadn't worn in a long time. She smoothed down the fabric, biting her lip. His waited a long time. This should fit the occasion. She climbed onto the bed, stretching out. Come on, Sehun. I'm waiting. The door burst open. I'm here. Sehun announced, his face flushed, only to stop short. Hayeon was fast asleep, soft snores escaping her lips. He sighed, walking up to her. Hayeon, I'm back, he murmured, gently nudging her. She stirred but turned away, slipping deeper into sleep. Sehun watched her for a moment, then let out a quiet chuckle. His excitement faded into a fond smile as he pulled the covers over her. Sleep well, he whispered before turning off the lights. The next morning, Hayeon slowly blinked her eyes open, still feeling the weight of sleep. The room was quiet, and for a moment, she felt disoriented. What happened? Did I fall asleep waiting for Sehun last night? She murmured, sitting up in bed. She turned to his side, but it was empty. Where is Sehun? She wondered aloud, frowning. Concerned, She quickly got out of bed and headed toward Haju's room. Just as she reached the door, she hesitated. "Oh, I'd better change first," she mumbled, realizing her disheveled state. After a quick change, she stepped inside and was met with the sight of Mrs. Park holding Haju, her expression warm. "I didn't know you were going to be here, Mrs. Park," Hayeon said, a little surprised. Mrs. Park looked up and smiled. "I wanted to see Haju. Did you sleep well?" "Yes. I really passed out," Hayeon admitted, bowing quickly. Then, noticing another familiar figure, she added, "Oh, the sitter is here too." The babysitter bowed slightly. "Yes, You must have been so tired yesterday. I apologize for not being here." Mrs. Park nodded knowingly. "You must still be tired. Why don't you get some more rest?" "No, it's fine," Hayeon replied, shaking her head. "I've slept enough. I just want to spend more time with Haju." Mrs. Park watched her fondly. "It'll be a handful by yourself. I'll stay with you." "I've just been playing with her. It's not tiring at all," Mrs. Park reassured her. "Now that I think of it, she's not shy around you, is she? She cries and makes a scene whenever Sehun holds her," Hayeon noted. "Oh." Mrs. Park mused. She turned to her granddaughter and cooed, "You do like Grandma more than Daddy, don't you?" Haju gurgled happily, clutching the plush bunny Sehun had bought her. "Maybe it's the doll Sehun got her," Hayeon pondered, watching her daughter's attachment to the toy. Just then, the door burst open, and Hyungsik hurried in, looking flustered. "Hayeon," he called urgently. She turned to him, startled. "Hyungsik." "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Hayeon, I think you need to come with me right away." "Uh-huh? What is it?" she asked, concern creeping into her voice. "I'll explain on the way," he said. "Oh, okay. Let me grab Haju's diaper bag," she insisted. No. "I think it's best if Haju stays here," he said, looking tense. Mrs. Park gave Hayeon a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I'll be here with her. You go ahead." Hayeon hesitated but nodded. "Okay. I'll be back soon." She glanced at Haju, who smiled as her grandma held her hand. "Take your time," Mrs. Park encouraged, waving Haju's tiny hand. Hayeon gave one last look before following Hyungsik. In the car, she eyed him suspiciously. "What's the emergency? I haven't seen Sehun at home today. Is everything okay?" "We're almost there. I'll explain as soon as we arrive. Just don't be mad, okay?" he said. Hyungsik remained silent until they pulled up in front of a luxurious-looking building. Hayeon frowned as they stepped inside. Massage spa? What are we doing here?" she asked, confused. Hyungsik rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. "Well, to be honest, there was no emergency." "What?" Hayeon exclaimed, exasperated. "You seemed exhausted. This is a surprise Sehun planned for you. He wanted you to have a chance to relax." Hayeon's mouth fell open. "So, there's nothing wrong with Sehun?" "Right," Hyungsik confirmed with a chuckle. "We just figured you wouldn't leave Haju with Mrs. Park if we asked outright. So Sehun and I came up with this plan. I'm sorry if it worried you." Hayeon shook her head in disbelief. "Wait, so Mrs. Park knew about this?" Hyungsik nodded. "Yes. She actually helped plan it. She knows what you need most at times like this." Hayeon read a message from Mrs. Park urging her to enjoy herself. She sighed in defeat. Well, I guess I don't have a choice, then. If you all work this hard just for me, I'd better enjoy it. Gimme that massage." Hyungsik grinned. "That's the spirit, Hayeon." After a long, relaxing massage and a shopping spree, Hayeon felt lighter than she had in months. That was wonderful. Where to next?" she asked. Hyungsik pulled out Sehun's debit card, catching her attention. He took her to a salon for a makeover, followed by more shopping. Hayeon was pleased. Getting pampered and going shopping. I never knew something like this could be such a mood booster. "Well, since you've been on your feet all day, why don't we get some food?" Hyungsik suggested. At the restaurant, Hayeon savored each bite. "Yum. I can't remember the last time I had a meal this relaxing." Hyungsik smirked. "By the way, where's Sehun?" "Just take your time and enjoy the food," he dodged the question. Once you're done, I'll take you to the final stop. Later, as they pulled up to a familiar building, Hayeon's breath hitched. Inside Sehun's dressing room, she noticed a neatly folded outfit, the same one she wore the day they first met. A note lay on top, "Do you remember the day we first met?" Her face warmed. After changing, a knock came at the door. She opened it to find Sehun standing there. "It's you, right? The one who was in my room?" he asked with a soft smile. Hayeon chuckled. "Ha! Yep, it's me. And what are you going to do about it?" she teased, her cheeks pink. "You're just like when I first saw you. No, even more beautiful. Are you sure you're a mom?" he teased, his own face warming. "Sehun, I missed you," she said softly. They kissed briefly. "Did you enjoy today's surprise?" he asked. "Yeah, it was amazing," she whispered. "What was your favorite part?" he asked. She pushed him onto the bed, making him look surprised. "Now." Sehun smirked. "You think you're the only one who's been waiting for this?" Hayeon placed her hands on his chest before leaning down to kiss him. "Sehun, there's something more I want to see." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh." She smiled. "A son that looks just like you." Sehun's expression softened. "Okay, then. It's decided." A year later, at a picnic, Siju wobbled toward them, giggling. "Siju, you want to come to mommy?" Hayeon cooed. Siju turned towards Sehun instead. "Come to daddy. Dada." Sehun chuckled. "Look at you walk, Siju. Going to your sister." Siju reached for Haju, only for her to tug his hair. "Haju, be gentle," Hayeon scolded softly. Haju hesitated before offering her toy's arm. Siju held it, his cries stopping. Sehun wrapped an arm around Hayeon. "They're lovely." She leaned into him. "I wonder where they get that from." Sehun smiled. "From the person I love most." "I love you," Hayeon whispered as they kissed. Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive, and we'll catch you in the next episode.